Three, two. Well, welcome everyone. We are so excited about today and our International Opportunities Career Community Panel. We're really thrilled to have each one of our panelists, and of course they'll be formally introduced to the group, so you'll get to know more in detail about their experiences and about who they are. So thank you every panelist and thank you every participant for being here. My name is Daniel Pasco. I am Associate Provost for Immersive Learning and Career Design at Drew University. I have the privilege of co-facilitating this panel with Max Zhang, who is a fantastic partner of our work. We're so thrilled and appreciative of the opportunity to be working with him. You see him right there in the center of the screen. Look at you. You can clean up really well, Max.
Thank you.
And then Hannah Faustman, who works at the Center for Global Education. We're also really thrilled to be working with her. She's been a fantastic addition to our team, and we're really excited to have her here in the panel. Of course, each of our panelists, but I don't want to steal Max's and Hannah's thunder. So thank you, panelists, for being here. Let me tell you briefly about what we're doing today. And as a matter of logistics, Max has put a link in the chat space that allows you to go through the program, know what the sequence of events is, know what the questions are going to be. What we're trying to do is to take advantage of the virtual opportunity that we have available. You know, I know that it offers a number of challenges, but many of you could potentially not be able to join us if we had been face-to-face, right? So our ability to have a broader reach is enhanced, and also our ability to have a screen in front of us through which we can kind of immerse ourselves a little deeper. So you can look at the program, get acquainted with what's happening, begin to think of questions. You can also be browsing through the community page, the International Opportunities Community page. You can also browse through the panels and their stories, so you can kind of immerse yourself a little more into what we're discussing, and then get ready for your potential inclusion of questions. We're asking everyone to please mute yourself just in case noise is in your environment, so that it doesn't come through. And of course, if at some point you want to ask a question, you're welcome to either throw it in the chat or unmute yourself when we open that space. So I wanted to just very briefly talk to you a little bit about our new approach to undergraduate education called Launch. So you'll see here in this image that Launch has become central to the mission of Drew University. It is a curriculum of students at Drew. So right now, first year and sophomore students are going through this curriculum, and in 2 years, all undergrad students will be going through Launch. Launch has 3 main goals: to help students identify a purpose at a time when 87% of the world's workforce is struggling to find meaning in what they do; to prepare for their careers, right, at a time when the job market and the career market is shifting on us at a very high speed; and also to prepare our students for their contribution to the community and to the world at a time when we realize that we have so many challenges that have become systemic and need to be addressed. Now, Drew comes to life through 7 high impact practices of what we call key strategies, and you see them here in the map. The first one is this couple of gears that represent a course that we have all students go through in their second semester called Drew 110, through which we introduce all students to Launch, and we engage all students in all things Launch. This is a very important part of the universality of Launch. No student misses Launch. No student falls through the cracks. And if you notice, these gears, which represent the course, are connected to an e-portfolio called the Launch Plan that they curate or begin curating during the course, and then through which they continue recording and curating their progress as they move forward in the college experience. Just to give you an idea, this is what the ePortfolio looks like. And you can see here the curriculum of the course and of Launch, which walks students through self-assessment and what matters to them out there in the community and the world, identification of a number of paths, engagement in communities, engagement with mentors, and engagement in experiences to identify what those paths are expecting from candidates, and then developing an action plan they present before alums, faculty, staff, and peers at the end of the curriculum. Another curricular and universal component is that all students are expected to complete 2 immersive experiences. What we did is we identified the criteria that make experiences meaningful, and then we diversified the type of experience students can do. So from student employment to student leadership, internship, study abroad, community-based learning, undergraduate research, etc. And in those 3 curricular components, right, the course, the ePortfolio, and the immersive experiences, we intentionally integrate transferable skill development for students to be aware, intentional, and have the capacity to articulate them to external audiences, and interaction with mentors, right? So these 3 are integrative of these 2 key components or high impact practices. And then in addition to that, we've scaffolded these experiences through career communities and identity affinity communities. So if you go to the top, you can see here all the career communities, including the international opportunities career community that we're discussing today, and also the identity affinity communities that try to also attract students not only by career interest, but also by identity affinities. And curate and integrate. We feed data from multiple systems into these spaces to help students have everything at their fingertips and to be able to see the bigger picture of their development. Now, part of Launch this fall in our virtual moment, right, we have what we call Launch Expo, the 2020 Launch Expo, that includes our Launch Communities panel series, including this panel. We have a total of 18 panels this term. And then also an immersive experiences fair, which is a poster session, and then a Launch Communities fair, which will allow students to explore all communities and all the different student life, academic, and co-curricular opportunities to which they have access. Now, if you go deeper into the panel series, you can see here the different panels that are available to you, and we have a couple of pages for that. And then if you click on each one of them, you get to see who are the panelists. And today we have a fantastic group of panelists: Eric Reed, Andrew Bishop, Mariana Goncalves Severgnini, and Delaney Redford. And we're so appreciative that you're here with us. You can read more about them in this space, and to which you have access through the program. And also if you go to launch.drew.edu and Expo. I'll just let you know that we have a community page integrated and curated specifically for international opportunities, but I know that Max and Hannah will walk you through that to give you a little more information. So without further ado, and not to use more of the time of the panel, I'll pass the torch to Hannah and become a participant. Take it away, Hannah and Max.
All right, thank you, Daniel. And thank you, panelists. I know that you come with us with a wealth of experience, and we're really excited to have you here. So let's just get right into the questions. But before we get started, if you could just introduce yourself by sharing a little bit more about you, your major, your minor, your degrees, and a little bit about your current position. So if we could, Eric, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so hi everybody. My name's Eric Reed. I'm currently the Senior U.S. Project Manager for Into University Partnerships Recruitment Office in China. And my background is also in liberal arts. So actually I graduated undergrad from Bowdoin College up in Maine. And at the time I majored in English literature. And then after that, I actually ended up going to China and doing a master's degree there, where I did my thesis in intercultural communication studies. And then since then, I've basically been working in China with a couple different university projects. And then for the last 5+ years with Into. And as some of you may know, we actually partner with Drew to do most of Drew's international marketing and recruitment, as well as the student services on campus, which is what Max is involved with.
Thank you. Mariana?
Hi, my name is Mariana. I'm originally from Brazil. I've lived abroad most of my life. I've lived in China, Denmark, Italy, the US. I graduated from Drew with a bachelor's in economics last year, 2 years ago. And I'm currently getting my MBA at Ramapo.
Thank you for sharing. Delaney?
Hi, I'm Delaney. I am still in Drew, actually. I am a junior. I am a major in international relations with a minor in law, justice, and society. I was born and raised in New Jersey, but I actually attended an international school from grades 8th to 12th. So I've had a lot of experience with that. And then I also do a lot of focus of international service work. So.
Great, thank you. Leah, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Leah Wandera, and I'm from Kenya, born and raised in Kenya, but currently I'm here in New Jersey, actually just staying a few miles, less than a mile away from the campus. So I'm a master's student. I'm doing my master's in divinity, social justice, advocacy, and I also continue with my work that I do in social justice work because I'm a founder and director of Mama Smile Health Organization, and also just trying to hand over as working as the acting CEO for Hope Foundation for African Women. So while I'm a student, I also continue with my social justice work that I'm doing back in Kenya.
Thank you. And I think we have Andrew.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Andrew Bishop. I graduated from Drew back in 2014 with a double major in political science and Chinese studies. I studied abroad in China 3 times while I was at Drew, and then ended up working with Teach for China upon graduation. Following my time working with Teach for China, I decided to come back and teach for a couple more years via Teach for America in Mississippi. And I just finished my Master of Public Policy at the University of Virginia in May. So I now have a new position with Richmond Public Schools. I'm the school planning specialist here in Virginia.
Great, thank you, panelists. It sounds like we have a diversity of international opportunities and experiences that you all have, so thank you for sharing. So if you could share a little bit about some of the opportunities or challenges that played a significant role in leading to your current career, things such as like internships or networking, maybe a study abroad, any one of those or anything that you can think of that might have led you to this career path. And feel free to just jump in there.
Okay, I'll talk about it a little bit. I'm still figuring out what my career path is. I used to be an English teacher back in Brazil. I taught for a few years, and upon graduation from Drew, I was an Italian minor during my time at Drew, and I got this amazing opportunity to take what I've learned and actually go live in Italy for a year. That also came through Drew, this internship post-graduation. Great connection that Drew has, and I was in Italy for 9 months and teaching again, just immersed in the culture and the language and all of that. It was really amazing, and it really gave me more experience, and I feel that that's adding so much to my learning now as I seek my MBA degree. This master's, it focused a lot on globalization and different cultures. So I really feel that all those experiences are helping me just achieve my goals.
Okay, I'll just jump in. I'm currently working with International Student Center as the assistant administrative. And so sometimes I feel like I'm always on an international platform because I'm an international student. And although my undergrad was in project planning and management, I only worked for like less than a year in Kenya. And then I went to work as a young missionary in Zimbabwe. And since then, my work has just revolved from coming from one community, from one country, from one region to another. And now I'm here doing my master's in divinity. So I feel like most of my experience when it comes to work has been across different communities, across different nations, across like different states, across like different people. So I feel like just having that experience of diversity in each and everything that I do really builds me up and gives me that global mindfulness of each and everything that I do. So to me, it's so interesting because I come from a project planning management into theology, like religious ministry. So a little bit, it's also interesting because someone will ask, don't you feel confused? But I feel like I'm a bridge between these two things because we are talking about the community and the society, and we are talking about religious aspects, yeah? But in between here, we have social issues that cut across these two people. When we are talking about health cuts across. You're a religious person, you're not a religious person, a health issue is a health issue. So I feel like my work entails like being a bridge on these two people. How do religious entities supposed to handle social issues, or how do social issues affect this other side? So that is where I am when it comes to kind of like either career. And so I feel like this is a long-term thing. This is kind of like a lifetime career path that I want to take. I continue as a project manager, but implementing social issues, helping religious institutions implementing social issues. At a point, I've worked with Bill Gates Foundation on some of the projects on the ground in Kenya. So, yeah.
I think something that Leah just said about, kind of moving around a lot and, going from community to community has been kind of a hallmark of the experiences that I've had so far as well. I was born and raised in New Jersey and then went to Drew. And then, right out of undergrad, I lived in China for 2 years. And then I lived in Mississippi for 2 years. And then I was in Charlottesville for 2 years. And now I'm in Richmond. And, hopefully it's going to be longer than 2 years because, moving around has been a little bit of a challenge. But I think one thing that, set me up starting at Drew was just kind of learning to be a little bit more open-minded and adaptable, right? When a situation, presents itself, or rather an opportunity presents itself that you can take advantage of for your own personal learning and, ability to move your career forward, even if it takes you to a place that you might not initially think you would enjoy or love, or that others tell you that you wouldn't enjoy or love. You sometimes need to go with your own gut feeling. And I think for me, it's worked out for me so far in getting me to where I am. Just kind of going with the flow, even if it's not where I initially thought that I'd be ending up.
Going off of going with the flow, I'm still a student, so I don't have my career yet set, but I definitely think that I got into my path on like international relations because I just went with the flow, and I took risks that I think I was scared to take. I really fell in love with the international relations and working with different cultures. When I actually went my senior year of high school, I took a spring break trip and I did service work in Honduras all by myself. 18-year-old, first time out of the country. Like, I was very scared to do it. But as soon as I did it, I fell in love with the culture. I fell in love with like experiencing the culture and helping and all of that. So I think another thing that I've learned from Drew, and like Drew has supported, is taking the risks that you're scared to take. I was also scared. I just this past spring completed an internship at U.S. Senator Bob Menendez's office, and I was always scared of that because I was like, this is such a big deal. Like, he's one of the senior senators on the U.S. Foreign Policy Committee, and like that's why I like really wanted to work for him. But Drew just like gave me that confidence to like take those risks, and by taking those risks, it is helping push me forward. Now I'm actually in the process of interviewing for an internship with the U.S. State Department, so it's like an even higher deal. So I think it's just like taking those risks and following along and going with the flow, and really any opportunity like you should just take, because it definitely does get you along the way.
Great, thank you so much for sharing. You've already said a few of these items like when we were talking about it, but can you define any of those transferable skills that you gained along the way? We know that finding a career path is really a journey, and it sounds like you have all embraced so many experiences that have expanded your worldview and opened doors. Are there any, transferable skills that have really helped you take advantage of all those opportunities?
I can take that one. I think that as liberal arts students, we're always very aware of critical thinking, and I think that really is an incredibly important skill to have, especially when you're working internationally, because you're probably not going to have your top career choice. If you're trying to get a job working abroad, you're probably going to have to, like we just said, either go with the flow or just take what opportunities are in front of you. But being in a different culture, being in a different country, probably with a different language, that ability to think analytically is really important, I think. And then the second one I'd list there is just a general sense of courage, a willingness to try new things, because I think that that's the other thing when you're working abroad. You don't really, you're always going to be out of your comfort zone. So it's not something for the faint of heart. And I think that I've even seen in my time here a lot of people who have come to China from other countries, but not really been able to stick around just because they're so far out of their own cultural and linguistic comfort zone. So the ability to adapt to that and to really thrive in new environments, I think, is also really important.
I'll also just, sorry. I'll just build off on what Eric just said. It's actually very funny because Eric always talks with me and, our other into China colleagues in complete Chinese, because he's absolutely super fluent. And so it's actually a little funny for me to, see Eric talking English, because, I don't usually get the chance. But I think that speaks to many of the panelists, and, Eric, you guys talked about is, the courage to step out of your comfort zone, because your native tongue is going to be the most comfortable thing that you are, with. But when you're in a different culture, when you're in a different environment, it is just so good if you can open yourself up and then start to just use the language. So yeah, that's really amazing.
Okay, I was just going to add more, like, to me, digital proficiency, it's something that I've learned each and every time I move across different geographical areas. Like, let's say, when you compare the level of IT in Kenya and the level of IT in US, it's very different. And even if you compare it with Zimbabwe, I worked for 2 years, it's very different. So I feel like just crossing across these different regions that have high different level in IT has really helped my IT skills, being that I didn't study IT in school, or I wasn't trained to use a computer while I was growing up. But it's something that I feel like I've gained along the way while I'm working, and I'm just engaging with these different levels. And then another thing that I can say is embracing the difference, the diversity that we have. Because working in different communities, just as Eric said, adaptability, you need to adapt, but you also need to have an open heart, an open mind to embrace other people's culture, to embrace the difference that you meet along the way. Because if you don't have a heart to embrace them, then it becomes even very hard for you to adapt and for you to be able to stay in such an environment. So just learning on how to engage those differences and being able to adapt to them, and allowing people also to learn from you, it's something that I feel like it's really, really required of me. And then besides ethical thinking, because you work with different people, you work on a different platform. And so it calls also for me to think ethically, like, how am I supposed not to go beyond what this other person doesn't like? Or how am I supposed to maybe, let me take an example, applying the policies and the rules. Sometimes some areas is not very strict like other regions, but when you get there, you need to have this ethical thinking, or you need to find out what are some of the things in this place, what are some of the things in this country that I need to abide with, that I can't go against. Yeah, so it also challenges me, and it gives me that aspect of being an ethical thinker and maybe problem solving. Because I feel like I deal with social issues, things that are very recurring, things that on each and every day they're emerging. Now look at the COVID situation, how it's really affecting each and every aspect of life. It requires us to think critically and come up with solution to some of these problems. So it makes me a problem solver each and every time, because you have to work with a team and you have to come up with a solution on a certain issue.
I think everybody said it really well. And I would just like to add one thing that I think kind of came from Drew that helped me with all of those things, is that Drew does a lot to celebrate other cultures. So with the International Student Association, with other things, there is a space for international students on campus. There's a space for you to bring your own culture, to bring your own experiences, and really be proud of that and celebrate it. I think that that's also important, because as an international student, when you come to the United States, you're here to learn about the American culture and to learn English. But in a campus as diverse as Drew, it's a huge opportunity to go beyond that and actually get exposed to the world. So I always thought that was amazing, and it's great work that is done within the university.
I think going off of that, just in order to get that experience at Drew, you do need to have good communication skills. I know that's a basic one, but I was an RA last year. I was supposed to be one this year, but I was one last year, and I was on the first year's floor. And I know one of the first things I did was I made sure to ask everyone what cultural holidays they celebrate and that kind of stuff, just because you do want to be able to expose everyone to that, and you don't want anyone to feel left out. And in order to do that, I needed the communication with them, and they needed to communicate back with me. And so that's just a really important part of understanding cultures and stuff too, because you need that. It's also very helpful in getting internships. I know that from experience. That and having on-campus jobs, if you're able to, is very helpful too. I work at the front desk in the student center and in the student activities office, and the transferable skills I gained from those, I've put on all of my resumes for internships, and I've had 2 internships now because of it. So that any kind of skills you can pick up from working on campus are very good too.
Yeah, and I think that everyone has really named a bunch of the skills that initially came to mind for me. You know, language being one of the first. The IT component, I also agree with that. I think, you know, it's important for folks who are leaning into the social sciences too to not be afraid of taking more quantitative classes. I actually think one of my bigger regrets coming out of Drew is that I, you know, maybe took a little bit of the easy route when it came to knocking out my quant requirements. And I think it would have been helpful to me career-wise if I had taken, you know, that second class in statistics, or had even delved a little bit deeper into economics or into calculus, which I was able to go back to and get once I got to grad school. But, you know, I do wonder if I could have added on and challenged myself a little bit more and gotten over that fear of taking, you know, higher level math. And then I think the one other thing, and you know, this does kind of lean into the diversity and the opportunities that Drew brings. I'm really excited to see that there are going to be different types of affinity spaces for folks. But I think particularly for white students at Drew, it's very important to begin delving into identity work for yourself, to be learning more about race and privilege and you know, the way that your identity impacts others. Particularly if you're going to be working in communities where it's not predominantly white folks, as you know, much of the country and much of the world is. And you know, I was able to get a lot of that when I was in Teach for China and Teach for America through programming that they did. But I think that, you know, being able to do some of that self-learning while I was an undergrad would have helped me, you know, I think start that journey much sooner. So that's probably the last thing that I'd recommend.
That is actually a really good thing and a very good segue to the next question, which, by the way, I'm deviating from our planned questions because you guys just inspired me with a lot more questions that, you know, just keep popping up in my head. So going back to, you know, Andrew, when you said, you know, now that you're thinking back, if you took more quantitative classes, you know, in college, you wonder what that would have helped you, right? But I think what all of you, the panelists, have done is you took the you took yourself out of the comfort zone. You got yourself courage to you know, go out of your way and experience different cultures, which I think is, you know, super impressive, and not a lot of you know, students would necessarily embark on that journey. And then so my question to you guys is, where did you find the courage? If you discussed this with somebody, like for example your friends, your parents, you got any influence from, you know, even movies, right? For example, like, oh, you know, I've seen this movie about another country and I'm just so fascinated I wanted to go, right? So like any influence, if you can think really back, that brought you to the point where you're like, okay, I want to experience a new culture. I want to try. I want to meet these new people who I might not even be able to communicate very well, right? So that's, I know it's a long question, but I am really hoping to hear your answers. And I see Mariana is already smiling. So do you want to go ahead and start, Mariana?
Well, it's very hard for me to answer that question because I didn't have a choice, right? I was 12 years old and I got thrown in the middle of China. I didn't speak English. I didn't speak Chinese. I spoke Portuguese barely. And it was just like, go, do your thing. And I think that one of the things that for me really helped, so I was in the situation, there wasn't a lot of other Brazilian people, so gravitating towards that wasn't really an option. And my parents really pushed us hard. I had this thing when I first moved to China where I didn't want to learn English. I was like, I'm going to learn Chinese and that's it. Like, that's why I'm here. And my dad kind of said, I'm not getting you Chinese lessons until you learn English. And I was placed in international school. And in 6 months, I was like, okay, my English is pretty good. I want to learn Chinese. And I think that at that point, that's when it clicked for me that languages are just this gateway into the world, basically. Because the moment, even if you don't speak the language, if you can say hello or a couple of things in a different language, people just brighten up. I had one very close friend while at Drew who's Korean, and she taught me hello and I'm hungry. So when I meet a new Korean person, I'm like, hello, and this is the only thing I know how to say. But that just kind of opens them up to, you're interested in my culture, I want to talk to you, kind of thing. So I think that I don't know where the courage came from. I just had to have it. So.
I'll just joke around. I think you probably also ask the Korean student, "I'm hungry," so you guys can go get some dinner together. But yeah, no, that is actually very good, and that's another question that I want to ask the group about language. But Delaney, do you want to talk about the courage piece?
Sure. So I grew up, I'm actually a Air Force brat. So my dad is retired Air Force. So I grew up in a military-based school district. So I grew up with kids coming from all over the world. They would say their experiences. I thought I was very unlucky because I was stuck in Jersey for my whole time. My dad never moved bases, so I only had the Jersey experience. But then I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to go to an international school for 8th through 12th grade. And going there and meeting, like, one of my best friends came from Hong Kong, like, just meeting people from cultures that I had never experienced before, and like being able to put those differences aside, I was like, I love this. Like, I love just making friends and letting cultures connect seamlessly. And so, but then it always came to me too that I was lucky to have this type of education, and not everyone is able to have that. And so I have a passion for giving back. I'm a civic scholar, so like it's always kind of been ingrained in me into giving back to the community. And so I think that's actually what gave me the courage to travel abroad by myself for the first time, to a country I had never known of. My mom was actually scared for me to go because there's travel warnings against going to Honduras. So she was like scared for me. She was like, I don't know how you did. Like, she literally till this day still says, I don't know how you had the courage to go. But I really just wanted to, I went with a program that helps build schools there. And I just wanted to help give an education to a student who wouldn't have the same opportunities as me. So I think my passion for wanting to help others is what gave me that courage, because if I'm able to have a good experience, I want to help others as much as I can. And that's why I have the courage to do it.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And Andrew, do you want to go next?
Sure. It's hard to say. I think for me, a lot of it has just kind of stemmed from, I had positive experiences, the first time I went abroad, and I also had challenges along the way, right, that you kind of learn to overcome. And I'll briefly tell, I see that Stacy Fisher is on the call, and she knows this is, I think this is one of her favorite stories from my experiences abroad. But, when we went over for the first time with Professor Baidi for a summer program, it was, I think, our first or second night in China. And she basically said, all right, I'm not helping you get food tonight. You have to go out and get it yourself. And, here we were, we had only been studying Chinese for 2 semesters. We didn't get to, the third book where we know the characters to order food, and we just kind of were thrown out into this environment that we had to go figure it out. And we stood outside of like, a baozi, like a steamed like bun place, for about 20 minutes, trying to figure out what the character said and getting the courage up to go up and actually ask someone. Right. And once we finally did it and we got, that baozi, and we went back, we're like, wow, like, no matter what, in the end, there is going to always be that flexibility when we can lean on the things that we know and that we've, are able to problem solve through, to kind of just keep going. And, that experience gave me the confidence to go abroad for the semester, which gave me the confidence to apply to the critical language program, which I got into. And then it gave me the confidence to go and live in China for 2 years, right? And so those things kind of build on each other. And even when you face challenges over that time, just stemming from that beginning of knowing that, hey, I can actually figure this out, it builds and, has helped me get where I am today.
Right, that is great. Yes, that one first step is always the most right, important and the most scary. But once you actually land that step, and then right, it's almost like stepping on the moon. So let's hear Leah, your take on courage.
Okay, I'll say what like encouraged me to step into what I'm doing until today is first like looking at my childhood and life experience. When you are brought up in a situation and it gets at a point you feel like you are so tired of this situation, but there is no way you are getting out of it. So I ask a lot of questions. Why is this happening? When will it end? Yeah. Why is it not ending? And why are we not having someone coming to help out and all that? Yeah. So I found myself like getting so much interested on life issues. How are people surviving? Yeah. Even within our family, we'll sit on the table, we'll like share a meal, we'll eat, but I'll want to ask like, why are we having this? Yeah. And so that interest of getting answers to so many questions that are pertaining to life got me into like getting so much interested and being concerned about how is the other person living different from how am I living, and what could be the reason to why this person is going through such issues, and why is it that when we go through such issues there is no one to listen to us, or there is no one to help us either solve those issues. Yeah. So when I was growing up, I actually wanted to become a neurosurgeon. That was my like childhood dream. I don't know whoever lives their childhood dream, but along the way, my childhood dream changed because of the desire for me to get answers to all these questions that I was having. Yeah. And so after my high school, I found myself being enrolled to do project planning and management. One, because I'm one person that finds it very hard to complete a task without a checklist. So I must like have at least a checklist besides me to remind me that this follows this and this follows this. Yeah. And so that also informed me on why I'm always so much keen on the outcome of what I'm doing. What is the result of what I'm doing? What is the impact of what I'm doing? Is it only affecting me, or it's affecting someone close to me? And how can I change the effect of that? So because of that, I found myself now getting so much close into the social justice issues. Because I remember there is one day I went for a young people's meeting, and we were getting a training on behavioral change. And I just found myself asking, why is it that we have World Health Organization, we have World Vision, we have UNICEF, we have UN, we have all these philanthropic organizations that are working on the same issues, but these issues never end. What's the problem? Like, where do we go wrong? We have so many organizations that are working on food security, but so many children are still dying of hunger outside there. What's going on? Like, what is happening? So when I ask such questions, I get drawn to what is the impact of the things that we do? What is the outcome of some of the things that we do? Even the words that we say, yeah? And so that like gave me the courage to want to pursue my project planning and management, because I kept on asking, which degree can I do that will help me do this, yeah? And so when I got that, I always feel like so inspired, like I feel so satisfied in what I'm doing, because I'm not only out there to help the organizations, non-governmental organizations, but the reason to why I feel like I applied to Drew and chose to do a theological project is because when you go to our communities, our religious institution, be it Muslim, be it Buddhist, be it Christians, they're really involved into social work in the community. They really pump a lot of money into those social issues. But sometimes you can't see the outcome. You can't even trace the impact. Do they always have some strategic plans? Do they have someone who helped in doing that? So I felt like there was a gap and I needed to fill that gap. So that is what like really informs me on whatever that I do each and every day. Looking at how can we create an impact? How can we create a better positive outcome of what that we do? And so this is like kind of an encouragement to any student who is thinking on how do I navigate around this, becoming either working in a social justice world or a philanthropic justice world, because it involves social issues, it involves creating impact or solving the problem of those social issues. So one passion, if you care about the justice, then welcome to the board.
Well, that is just very, very amazingly said. And you remind me of something that I learned from, I forget, either it's a video or a book, but basically it says everyone has a mission statement, their own personal mission statement. Either it is written on a piece of paper or it's written in their head. But everything you do, no matter how different it might look like, in the end, if you really look closely enough, it'll tie into your mission statement that is either visible on a piece of paper or invisible. But I think that is, that is why a lot of you, the panelists said, going with the flow, but eventually, the flow connects, right? The nodes in the flow in the river connects with the mission for each one of you. So that is very powerful. Thank you, Leah. And last but not least, Eric, do you want to talk about courage?
Sure. I mean, like I said before, I think a lot of this is about stepping outside of your comfort zone. And I think that especially in a place like America, we suffer from something which is, for lack of a better term, I think it's big country syndrome, where you're in such an immersive cultural environment that you don't realize what it's like to actually step outside of that. So I think that was one of the things that really attracted me to studying abroad, and really, after I'd studied abroad, drew me back to China, is the fact that you're going to a cultural space which is so different from your own. And being able to understand and gain cultural fluency, even more, I think, than linguistic fluency, really comes as a sense of accomplishment. So I think that is something that draws people to dive into other cultures, is the sense of accomplishment you get from understanding those cultures. But I think it's also really eye-opening in the sense that it is I think it's the best way to challenge your own values, to challenge your own beliefs. Once you've existed in another country, you've understood the social issues in that country, and you've talked to the people there, you kind of understand their outlook on the world, you generally will have a much different outlook on your own country and your own culture. I think that as far as courage goes, I think that the issue is that I think a lot of people, not just Americans, but from every country, have trouble taking that first step, or have trouble really stepping outside of their own comfortable cultural space. And so if you have the courage to do that, I think the rewards are really significant, because cross-cultural fluency is actually a very sought after skill. And it's something that not a lot of people have. It's I think in some ways it's harder to attain than linguistic fluency. As for me, I think once I took that first step, I really did feel a sense of accomplishment, and it kind of piqued my curiosity to know more, to learn even more about that culture and that society that I was in. So from then on, it just kind of snowballed to where I am now, where I've just been here for 8 years. But I think that if there's any advice to be taken out of it, it's just don't be afraid to step out of your own culture, and don't be afraid to try to go understand another culture on its own terms, and to kind of try to free yourself from what I would consider our normalistic American view of the world.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eric. That is very well said. And I think that is why we try to offer Drew students, all the track programs, because, we want to help you guys make the first step, right? And I really appreciate, Eric, you said it's not just American students, but, students from all countries, really, stepping out of your comfort zone. So that's also something that, the International Student Center, as a staff from there, that's what we also try to do is, break the international students out of the comfort zone so they can, join the bigger Drew community and then talk with the domestic students and learn from the domestic students, and then vice versa, domestic students will learn from international students, and hopefully that encourage them to take the step to do study abroad opportunities. So this is really powerful. And so I think my next question, and I'll start with you, Eric, and then go backwards. So in terms of going with the flow, right? In terms of, Eric, you mentioned that you might have a career goal, right? But when you're in a different country, that might not be achievable, or like very hard to achieve. You kind of have to first start with opportunities that's in front of you, right? And then so I guess my question to you is, and to all the panelists later on, is where do you get the how did you access these opportunities? Where do you find them? And then like do network with people? How is networking done internationally? So like basically around that.
Sure. I mean, in my own experience, to be honest, it hasn't been a lot of social networking. It's been a lot of coincidences that have led to different career choices. But I mean, we talked about transferable skills, and we talked about, using your background to gain opportunities. I mean, for me, I literally fell into the work that I'm in now just because the project that I was initially employed on with Into really needed a foreigner, a native English speaker that had experience in Chinese universities. And so that's actually a very, very small crowd. So the way I was able to get my first job with Into was just by basically being someone who had experience studying in a Chinese university and therefore could understand how it worked. And so when I was initially employed with Into, I was working at a Chinese university, basically doing student services for foreign students that were there. Mm. So, I mean, I think, internationally, you've got to, like I said, you've got to take the opportunities that are in front of you, but you also have to be aware of what advantages you may have in comparison to locals or in comparison to other international people there. And as far as the networking goes, I mean, I think that because you're not going to have your own setup network, you're not going to have a lot of connections in that country. You just need to go out and build connections wherever you can. I mean, it could be, at work, it could be in, social activities, networking events. I mean, I know there are, where I am based right now in Shanghai, there's tons of networking events for all sorts of different nationalities. And so I just think attending those is a great way of gaining connections. But you also have to be realistic and understand that, when we're talking about the international job market, and like I said, there's just not maybe a plethora of opportunities. You just have to realize that, you may get one opportunity for every 100 people that you meet. So you've really got to try to stretch out and meet as many people as possible. Not with the idea that that will necessarily get you anywhere, but with the idea that the more people you meet, the more opportunities will eventually come your way. And if you do end up in a tough situation where maybe, you don't have a job or you don't have any prospects moving forward, you can rely on that network to get you somewhere.
Thank you very much, Eric. That is perfect. And that just reminded me of every time I go back to China to help Drew on his international student recruitment trip, I always get a meal out of Eric. So that is my networking. I always tell Eric, hey, I'm hungry, both in Chinese and English, to squeeze a meal out of him and his team. But that's one thing that I really appreciate. Being able to work with people, in a multicultural environment is, and there's just so much to interact with, and there's so much to learn from each other. So thank you very much, Eric. And then we'll go, like I said, reverse order. So Leah, you'll be next.
Thank you. I feel like Eric has said most of the things, but I'll just add one. Sometimes I always love stressing that your network is your net worth, you know, because when you network, you are able to get a chance to this opportunity. It doesn't mean that you are going to get the opportunity today or tomorrow, but it kind of like opens the door halfway for your opportunity, because not only do you understand how to navigate through these systems, yeah, because someone will tell you, oh, this is how I started, this is how it goes, or this is how it happens. And then from there, at least you learn on how also to navigate through. But sometimes I also say, when we are students, our universities provide a lot of experiences, especially through the extra curriculum activities that we do beyond our classes. Like, what are we doing? There's so many programs, so many projects that students engage in. And actually those ones, I think that the most things that provide space for us, because we put in practice what we have learned in class. And from there, you never know, someone might spot you, might say, oh, I like the way you do this, I like the way you design, I like the way you sing, I like the way you do this and that and that. And so from there, we get some of those opportunities, yeah? And the experience also, it might have been learned from class, or it might have not been learned from class. Sometimes I say, don't be afraid to learn something that is beyond your degree, that is beyond your main course. Yeah, if something pops up and you feel like, oh, I have a time and a chance to learn this, that is an added value. Because sometimes we go to apply for jobs and then they tell you a degree in this and this, but someone who speaks more than 2 languages is an added advantage. You get that? Or someone who is well skilled in computer is an added advantage. So having those extra skills that we can acquire that are outside what we learn in class, it's something very, very important. Let me tell you, when I applied for a job, Max is here. When I went to apply for a job at Into, yeah, do you know what one of the requirements was? It required a PhD student. That was one of the requirements. That was to say, take a chance, yeah, have that courage to take that risk. Because I remember when I talked to one of my professors and he was like, it needs a PhD student. And I went through what the requirements and what the skills were. And then I said, the only thing that I don't have here, it's the PhD, because I'm at the master's level. But when it comes to in terms of experience, I think I do what I have. And so I took that risk to submit my application. And I was called in for what? For a job. So sometimes don't feel, sometimes those 3 years, 5 years of experience, sometimes also intimidate us, yeah, when you see on a paper, but what is that extra skill that you have that you think can boost you? Now, when we are on campus, talking and sharing with our professors, talking and sharing with our advisors, to me, I found that a very important thing, because they know more, they've been into this world, and sometimes we sit in class, how we interact with them, they can they already know you can do this thing in a better way. So just going to them and sharing and talking and letting them advise on the best opportunities that are there. And then one thing that I challenge with the young people, there are a lot of programs and platforms for the young people. Sometimes we are always afraid of submitting those applications, long essays of description and explanation and all that, yeah? But there is where the starting point is. What are some of those international, the global chances, opportunities? For my example, when I finished graduate, I started working as a project manager in a construction industry, yeah? And trust you me, I say I'm one of those young people that came from the university and didn't struggle to find job. Not because my father is a big person in our country or something like that, but because of the network. Because while I was in campus, I was not only the student representative, but I engaged into a lot of leadership. And so I became a project management institute student liaison. And one day when we went for those meetings, one of the chairperson just said, I think you're graduating in December, take my card. On January 5th, come for an interview, because of the networking with people and just attending those meetings. Even if you won't say anything, just be there and listen to what they're sharing and the opportunities that they're telling out there. It also helps. Yeah.
Thank you, Leah. Every time I listen to you talk about your experience, it feels like, you know, I have an action item ready for me to go. Like, so after I heard what you said, I just wanted to go out of my door and then start to you know, network and then talk with people. But that's definitely you know, very, very good advice. Thank you for bringing the career piece to it. And I did not know about the PhD part, but I definitely think you are the best addition to our team. So thank you. And we'll continue with Andrew.
Yeah, so, you know, I think I need to echo, Leah had touched a little bit on, you know, your professors at Drew. I mean, my professors at Drew are still helping guide my career path. When I was deciding, you know, what I wanted to do after my time in Teach for America, I was trying to debate, should I go for, you know, an administrative degree and continue, you know, at the school level? Should I, you know, take a little bit more of a riskier path and you know, try to go for a public policy degree? Do I want to go for a PhD? And, you know, I was able to connect with, you know, Professor McGuinn, and I think I connected with Professor Mundo, folks that I'd had, you know, several years before, you know, as my political science professors, but who really were able to help me. And Professor McGuinn was actually the one who recommended I look into UVA. And, you know, 2 years later, here I am with my master's from the school, right? So, you know, there's so many of these little connections that you can always come back to. And I think the one other thing that's, you know, coming up for me is, as we're talking about this, right, is, you know, it may be a little surprising, but I'm kind of risk averse when it comes to my career choices. You know, one of the things for me is that I always want to make sure that I have a, you know, a continuous employment regardless of where I end up, right? And so even though I might want to aim for some specific dream job or, you know, whatever the most prestigious job is, the reality is that those don't always exist. And you know, I've applied for things that I haven't gotten, and I've been able to walk into other opportunities that I think in the end I'm much happier with, because they end up being work that I'm, you know, in the weeds on and things that I absolutely have loved. Right. And so I think it's important that, you know, you should apply for all of the, you know, your dream jobs and your dream positions, while also making sure that you're considering other positions that might not on first glance be where you thought you would end up. But in the end, actually might be a place for you to be really successful and happy. And that's been the case for me all, you know, throughout my time since I've graduated.
That is perfect. Thank you so much, Andrew. And Delaney, do you want to go next?
Sure. So definitely being like still in the Drew community, this might make the launch people happy. I definitely think like the launch program itself, the connecting with the mentors, Drew Connect, I've used a lot. LinkedIn I've done internships through the internship office, and LinkedIn is a requirement of that. And I loved LinkedIn. Actually, I'm in the UM program right now, and we have speakers come in all the time, and I usually connect with the speakers afterwards on LinkedIn, just so that, because I had that experience of listening to them, so I want that connection there, so that if something comes up in the future, I then have that ability to reach out. And then I've reached out like on LinkedIn to older like connections like from other internships. Once I finished my internship at the senator's office, I reached out to the research people there and LinkedIn connect with them. So definitely like that is a great part of it. I thank Launch. I thank the internship office for making that a big part of it now for us, because that is such a big part of networking now. Also, like taking every opportunity that's handed to you. I pay attention to your emails is the best thing I can say to Drew students. A lot of times, like the department secretaries and or like I'm in the Civic Scholars, so we get emails from Amy Sugarman for like opportunities to do. That's actually how I found the opportunity to interview for the U.S. State Department. So just paying attention to stuff. I know a lot of kids, we get a overwhelming amount of emails, but like definitely paying attention to them, because that, while it's not direct networking, it can get you connections that you need. And even going off of that, like I didn't have an interview with the State Department, their office in Vienna at the UN there. And unfortunately, I didn't get the position that I interviewed for, but the woman asked me, she was like, you'd make a great candidate. Can I pass your name along to my colleagues in case they needed an intern? And I said, absolutely. So just like saying yes to everything, because you never know what's going to come out of it and how it might like excel you to the future. And then also, like everyone else said, shout out to professors. Because I'm a civic, I have like 3 or 4 different advisors, but I still go to every single one of them for advice, because they are just amazing at like saying, oh, this might be great for you, or oh, maybe you're taking on a little too much, or reach out to this person. So they definitely are just good sounding board for you.
Yes, and then I'll use the opportunity to thank Mariana and Andrew again for being amazing alum for Drew. That's actually something that's really impressive about Drew. I came from a state school, super big state school, and so we always bring in industry people, but never once, I don't think. I think I did pay attention when I was in college, so but I don't think we actually brought in many alumni. But here, Drew, that tight connection with alumni is just amazing. So really appreciate you guys, and paying attention is definitely really important. Thank you, Delini, for bringing that up. And last but not least, Mariana, do you want to go?
I think I agree with everyone. I think those are amazing points. Just a reminder that every single person you talk to is a network. So I have quite a few examples of things that I thought, you don't even think about it. So currently where I'm at, I just introduced myself to the people in the office, just so they knew who I was. We talked a little bit, they knew a little bit about me. And a job opportunity came up on campus, and they passed my name along because I just had made that connection. It was 5 minutes. It was one interaction, but that you kind of stand out. While at Drew, I worked in the reunion. I got to meet a lot of alumni. These are great networks. You're there, you're working, but just having those experiences on campus where you're exposing yourself to alumni, to different people. Shark Tank, I highly recommend Shark Tank. It doesn't matter if you are a business, economics, if you have the opportunity to go watch. It's one night when campus is open, of course, pandemic aside. It's one night, but you get exposure both to these kids who are graduating and who are, getting out there and are going to be in the business world very soon, as well as all these panelists and alumni that come back for that. So every little interaction counts, and just take advantage. I got one internship on campus with the Career Center because I thought LinkedIn was a big deal. It was brought up in Shark Tank over and over and over again, and I had no clue how to navigate LinkedIn. And I went into the Career Center and I said, do you have somebody who can teach this workshop, and I'll put it together, I'll plan it. And the person who worked there at the time, she said, it's on my desk, but I don't have an intern this semester, so I can't get to it just yet. but maybe we can do something. I said, well, I can be your assistant. I'm free. And I got an internship, and it was a great experience. You know, it was in the area I wanted. So every little connection, 5 minutes, and it opened the door for an internship.
Thank you very much, Mariana. Mariana has been a really good advisor even for me. When I first joined Drew, she's already a student leader. And I was like, oh, every day I just work, and then there is no satisfaction out of it because I don't feel like I'm getting anything done. And then Mariana said, wow, how many students did you have today? And then she taught me like each day a small win. And I'm like, oh yeah, I think I can think of it this way. But I think talking with different people, it's so great because you get opportunities from them, you get advice from them. People love to, chat. And I think that is a golden plaque that students have. Like the student title is, I think, the most powerful title in the whole world because when you use the student, say, I'm a student and I want to learn about this, people are like, yeah, of course I want to help you because you're a student, right? So I know we have talked a lot, and especially me, I should really shut up. But I want to, open this, the questions to students. So students, or even panelists, if you have questions, for each other, feel free to, open your mic and then just start to ask questions. And so I'll give you guys a chance to, like 1 or 2 minutes to do it. If, after 1 minute, there's no question, I have a bigger question. But I want to give this opportunity just so we make sure that you get a chance to ask your questions.
I do have a question, and you guys talked about like still having this connection with your professors even though you're out of campus, talking with every person at Drew and campus, like how to do it when you're too shy to do that.
Well, that's a great question. I'm not shy at all. Max will testify to that. I think that the first and foremost is take the opportunity in class. I know a lot of people are scared of speaking up, but take that extra minute after class. Approach your professor. Maybe you do have a question and the professor, you were afraid to ask in class, and you can approach them after class. And just start that conversation. Afterwards, I know I communicate with a lot of my professors through email. They are usually pretty responsive. Some professors are like on LinkedIn, and you can chit chat with them there. Any way you can. I think the written communication tends to be a little less scary just because you have more control and you can really think about it. But ideally, you would build that. And I think after class is the best place to start, because then it's just you and the professor, you maybe a couple of students. That would be my suggestion.
I also think you find like that one advisor or like one teacher that you like really mesh well with, or maybe multiple. Like I have 2 of them. I have Professor Jordan, who is like my international relations one, but I also have like Professor Jemison, who's like my civic scholar, like that kind of one. And I just like both of them, you just kind of mesh with them, and like you eventually will grow comfortable in speaking to them. And like working with them, especially after like you've had maybe a class or 2 with them, because even though you're like in a class setting, you really do get to know your professors pretty well. They're all pretty personable. I like know crazy stories. Like my favorite is Jamison told us about the time her cat got arrested. Like you just find out stuff that makes them seem more approachable, and then you do mesh with them pretty well. And a lot of times, like, they'll get like really close to you. Like, I know Professor Jordan, because we're in the UN program with him, he's actually supposed to reach out with his like WhatsApp or whatever, so that we can like communicate in a more personable way too. So you do get that like more close connection with certain professors.
Then to also just add something, sometimes, or maybe let me use my experience. Sometimes you walk in the class and you might not like have that courage to first talk with your professor. What I do when I'm taking my time to learn about my professor, because I'm always one person that I say, no, I don't want first to interfere with my classwork. So I take my time to build the relationship with my professor. I use an extra office. Yeah, either the office that is in charge with the programs, or my advisor's office, or maybe another professor that is not directly teaching me, but I feel more approachable. Yeah, and sometimes when I talk to them, they'll be like, okay, so and so is nice, just try to reach out like this and like this. Yeah, so if it is hard to first approach the professor that is teaching you directly, you might also think of using another office. Yeah, so like the career department, just walk in there and talk to them. You know, they're there, they might not be teaching you, but they're there to help and guide on those issues. Yeah, so use other office that probably can also help you build on that link. And also fellow students. Yeah, we know we connect with fellow students. So if first you feel like, oh, I'm too shy to approach my professor or what, find a fellow student that you're comfortable talking with, then approach the professor together. Not like going as an individual. You can even go as a group. You can even go with a friend. If you feel comfortable going with a friend, then you start the conversation. And yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, Caroline, for asking the question. Really cool. And any other questions from the audience or the panelists? For the panelists.
I don't have a question, but Andrew Bailasha is my advisor as well, and that's a fantastic story. Thank you for sharing that.
I am so glad to hear that Baidi is still at Drew, and that you're able to have her as an advisor. She was a guiding force, and I would love to exchange stories about how the Chinese program is doing at some point. So I'm glad to hear that things are going well for you with that.
Okay. So yes, if there is no any other questions, Hannah, do you want to close it up?
Sure. Yeah. So thank you so much, panelists, for taking the time to be here with us today. Your experiences are amazing. Your advice has been phenomenal, and we really appreciate you taking the time. I did want to close up by just talking a little bit about Launch, just talking about the International Opportunities page that's available to everyone if you want to take a look and see how we have designed it. So let me see if I can share the screen, and I think that would probably be the easiest way. All right, can everybody see this? Great. Okay. So as Daniel had mentioned, we have the Launchpad device here. Today we talked about the international communities, and this is a career community, but we also have the identity and affinity communities as well. So we do encourage you to take a look at all of them. If you want to look into some of the opportunities that we have here on campus, you can just click on International Opportunities. And here you can connect with your mentors. This is a great way to, as one of our questions was, how do I connect with someone, especially if I might be shy? As someone who is also shy, this is a great way to connect with us. So please go ahead and email us at any time if you want to connect, have questions about TREX or with our International Ambassadors Program, any one of those. You can also see, these are some of the ways to get involved on campus. So we have a residential community to be involved with, the Ambassador Program. These are the international relations and major and minor information. We've talked a little bit about this semester in United Nations. I would encourage you all to take a look at that. And conversation partners is a great way to connect with our international students. And then there's a photo club. I think Max could probably talk a little bit more about that. And they're also offering student-taught language and culture courses. So I do encourage you to take a look at those. And then of course our study away programs, even though they might be on hold right now, we are hoping that those will be going in the summer or next year. So please take a look at those. And then I also want to encourage you to take a look at our calendar, which is on the homepage. So this is going to give you all the different events that are available in one stop shop. So you don't have to go searching for it. Always check out the calendar if you're interested in any one of the events that are happening on campus. So I think that that's really all that we have as far as our questions. Is there any questions that you have before we end for the night?
I just have a comment about the international ambassador. As a former international ambassador, that's a great way into, if you're shy, just loosening up a little bit, trying to reach out to these people, because it's new students coming in, international students who need some guidance, who need some experience, and you learn together, and it's just great. I highly recommend it if you are on campus as a student. It's a lot of fun. It's work, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and then also it's you know, if you want to make it as your first step, it's going to be a first step that's fun, but also, you know, not very risky, right? Because you'll be on campus, you'll be talking with you know, fellow students just like you, or coming to Drew. So
an encouragement to all the international students. Okay, forgive me for being biased a little bit, but to all the international students from the African diaspora, just to encourage you right now, I know some of them really wish to be on campus and be in person, but even while we are studying like virtually, we can still like start creating our connections and just like engaging into some of the virtual activities that we are already having on campus. And so this one goes beyond the only like the international students that is from the African diaspora, but any other international student, either you are in Korea, you are in China right now, and you're just joining us online, it's also good to just like start creating connection and engagement through the virtual activities that we are already having. Like today we are having the discussion here. So it's so beautiful to just join and learn and to walk along. It's also going to give you like that space for you to learn more and to prepare you. Even when it gets time for you to come in person, you already know a lot, yeah? To just like, oh, I had this while I was still away. I had this while I was still away, and I really want to like to physically engage in doing this. So feel more like encouraged to just like join us on all these virtual activities that we are trying to do, because we really feel happy to see you like joining and just be together.
cool, perfect. Well, you know, I just wanted to thank everybody again, all the panelists and all the students for being here tonight, and especially if you're on a different time zone. I know, Eric, you are in the morning, waking up at 7, you know, before 7, just for our panel. I know if I were in your shoes, I probably would be dead throughout the day because I wake up too early. But you know, so really appreciate you guys. You know, sharing your wisdom and your experience to our students. It really means a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
All right, I think then we can close it up. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great day or great night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.